I forced them to react. I was fishing reaction baits. The fish just reacted to it. Reaction. Another loose term. Reaction baits versus a fish reacting, forcefully reacting, maybe reacting out of hunger or opportunity, forcefully reacting, or reaction bait. These are the real three. The three reaction terms that I really want you to separate in your head. A reaction bait. Sure, we know a bait you cast out and reel in and it's got its own action. Reaction bait. Sure, lipless crankbaits, square bill crankbaits, jerk bait, a swimming worm. Sure, they're all reaction baits. We call a swim jig, we call it chatterbait. Sure, reaction bait. Okay, that's fine by me. Can't any bait essentially be a reaction bait if you force the fish to react to it, or if you just cast it out and you're reeling it and you're twitching it? Sure, it can be a reaction bait if that's how you want to categorize it. But is that a reaction bait? No, it's not. So we came up with this category, cast it and reel it in, and there's its action. Basically a reaction bait if you want a loose terminology for it. But what I want you guys to think about is hunger reaction, forceful reaction. Then there's a whole lot of mystery removed from the game. So I'll explain something. Let's say we got a lipless crankbait, we're throwing a rattle trap, we cast it out, they hear it coming. It's getting so close, that fish is not hungry, but that's his opportunity. That's an instinctual hunger reaction. The opportunity was there and it was convenient, okay? It was so convenient instinctually, his body said, eat that thing, okay? And that is realistically the majority of the bass that strike, because the odds of you hitting them at breakfast, lunch, or dinner is pretty slim, unless you're fishing first thing in the morning or in the evening, and that happened to be when they preferred to eat. I don't think a bass's mom and dad wakes him up and says, hey, let me pour you a bowl of Fruit Loops. No. Typically, they're going to eat whenever they're going to eat, and the odds of you hitting them when they want to eat, unless it's like a low-pressure day, first thing in the morning, last thing in the evening, are pretty slim, and still, it's not a large percentage. It's a bigger percentage than what you're fishing for midday, most likely, that are feeding during low light hours, because the opportunities become easier for them to hunt. But that is a reactionary instinct for them to eat. That's the majority of the bass you're catching. Then there's forcefully causing them to react. This is where it's not out of instinct. This is where the fly's coming at your face and you say, get out of here. And next thing you know, you're stuck to that fly. A lot of these bass that you get hooked up here or hooked on the side of the face, or they just barely got the back of your treble hook, skin hook right here on their cheek. They don't have hands. They're not running up there like, what is it? What is it? What is it? They're not doing that. Their feelers right here on their mouth. It's their face. They ram it. I mean, how many times have you seen a bass hit a topwater with his mouth closed? A lot of the time, that could be them trying to wound it. They think it's a school of bait. They can wound it and come back and get it. That bass is actively feeding, or the opportunity was so good, you got the instinctual reaction of him having the opportunity to eat something else. And you'll notice this, if it's that instinctual reaction, them eating because the opportunity was so great, this is oftentimes where you'll see them spit up bait fish, or you put them in the box and they're spitting up a ton of crawfish, or they're spitting up gobies. That's how you know, most likely, unless the bait fish they spit up looks really fresh, then that's a feeding window and that's their time. And you should probably fish the next day in the same spot at the same time, because you actually found actively feeding fish, which is the easiest target out there. If you find actively feeding bass, you can go out there and wreck them with an assortment of lures. This ain't even about the lure. But let's say you hook that fish, he spits up nothing. Well, that's sitting in his stomach for a while. He doesn't have a fresh kill in there. You got that fish to react. Now, you either got him to react in two different ways. Reacting instinctually because the opportunity was so great, or you forced him to swat the fly that was in his face. Couple of trains of thought here. When you're flipping up to cover and structure, if you have a slow falling weight, let's say we got a creature bait and it's falling slow into there. Hard to get them to swat that fly if that fly is moving in slow motion. You kind of, move out the way. But now let's say you got an ounce tungsten, ounce and a half tungsten. We're talking punching here. Now it's coming through like this, boom, like that, okay? We can't just gradually move out the way. No, we're gonna say, get, okay? And oftentimes when you'll feel like you're flipping, you'll feel that boom, boom, and like it's just not there. That was that check bite. Same thing too. Let's say there's a tree right here, you know, it's out a couple ways. You miss the tree by a couple feet, you don't get bit, you throw back in there and you bounce off the tree. Well, those bass, we know they hold tight to cover and structure. Chances are you probably almost hit him and you forced him to swing to say, get out of here, fly. That's a pure reaction, not an instinctive reaction to eat. That was a reaction to get out of my face, get out of my zone, and they have to use their mouth because they don't have hands. So I want you to grasp this thought process. Actively feeding bass are by far the hardest ones to find, not to fight. That'd be cool though. But if you see them spit something up next time, look at how decomposed it is, all right? Because it doesn't take that long. If it's still got scales, it's still got colors, looks like a fresh crawdad, or it's still semi-alive when they spit it up, if it's twitching, chances are there's a feeding window that happens in that particular part of lake or river at that time. And take that clue. I've seen so many people ignore that. Then if they don't spit anything up, you know chances are you probably didn't catch a fish that was actively feeding. So you know that time that you caught that fish, that probably wasn't an active feeding zone, because bass spit stuff up all the time if they're actively feeding. Even if they've got it within them within the last day, oftentimes they'll still spit it up. And you can look at it. Is it pretty decomposed? Well, then you know you really missed that bite window, but you did something right and you instinctively got that fish to eat because the opportunity was so great. You placed your cast perfectly. But now let's say you got that boat dock and you're throwing a couple foot off that dock. Picture where you think that fish would be positioned. Make multiple casts and force him to swat the fly. That is a completely different reaction, guys. And if I guarantee you, if you go out there with that mindset, you are then going to force much more fish to react. I'm Nick, the Informative Fisherman. Make sure to follow me on all the popular social media channels. See you next time.